Welcome to the PinLeader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The PinLeader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the PinLeader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about architecture of success. And I have two gentlemen with me that know about how to build for success. I have Mr. Tim Mays, who is the owner-operator of Mavillino Homes. His background includes many years of executive leadership roles in supply chain and information technologies. Prior to that, he worked as an analytical chemist. These roles taught him the value of efficiency, precision, and having a keen eye to detail, all essential to meeting customer and employees' needs. And at Mavillino, his goal is to bring the same commitment to every project, building homes that exceed customer expectations. I also have with me Mr. Matt Maxwell, who is also the owner and operator of Mavillino Homes. So we got a team effort here, has more than 25 years of hands-on experience in the construction industry, specializing in new construction homes, custom-built homes, along with land development. He was born and raised in Toledo, Ohio, where he attended Pintuck County Vocational School for Carpentry. One of his core values is building a reputation of professionalism while having a commitment to precision, efficiency, and quality results on every project. And we're going to hear more about that. And he prides himself in building each home as if it was his very own. So I'm going to say, welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. So I'm going to get us started because there's so much work. And I know we've got a number of individuals I know who have built homes, been in the process of it. And again, you've been successful at it. And I know some have struggled with it. So I'm going to start with this first one about integrity. Mavillino emphasizes integrity, open communication, and quality. So how do you bring those values to life as a leader every day? And I'll start with you, Tim.
Well, first of all, I guess being somewhat new to construction, that's not my background, but I got involved probably about 10 years ago after retiring from a prior career. And, just all from all my prior experiences and my careers previous to getting into construction, business integrity is very important to me. Mm-hmm. And as I got involved in the construction, building houses, I wanted to make sure that we were providing a solution to customers that had the same level of integrity. There's a lot of construction companies out there that are not as trustworthy. And to me, it didn't make sense to get involved in businesses if we can't bring that integrity to the customer and make sure they're getting what they paid for.
I think with you, it sounds like, again, you're bringing from that past experience as well. Matt, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you've worked hard on it too.
Yeah, this is a challenge for all companies, all industries in this time frame, I would say. I think right now, open communication and doing what you say and saying what you do. I mean, that's number one for us right now. I mean, have the hard conversations. No one wants to have them, sweep under the rug, wait till next week. Tim and I have found that just biting that bullet and just having that conversation, call, phone, text, email. I mean, those aren't as personal, but we've found that having those hard conversations via phone has been better, or in person, than having them over a social network, I would say. Last, and you hit it on the head, obviously building it like it's our own. I mean, there's no point of doing this if we're going to put out shoddy work. We want to do it like we live in ourselves. So that's what we pride ourselves in.
And to your point there, how do you align your team around those values, especially during challenging projects? And I know Mavillino, custom building homes, you have this right on your website, which is very clear. It's very outlined. So how do you build that with those teams to get them to also hold those values?
Both internal teams and external, being not only our own people are bringing that level of integrity, but all of our subcontractors don't just look for the cheapest bid out there. We only work with contractors that we know and trust their quality and hold them to the same level with our own people.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, myself being in sports background, I feel like a team effort has helped us succeed. We've kind of put it as a team first. Everybody's a part of the team. There's no I. If there's something wrong, we all admit it. I mean, I think what's helped us succeed is probably our budget meetings. As much as everybody loves and hates meetings, I feel like that's helped the operations side see some internal things that they might not have. So I think team meetings are very, very important. Obviously, you can have too many just as long as they're concise and efficient. I think customer on-site visits are very, very important as well, letting them see real-time issues or things to take care of, as well as internal budget meetings with the customers in the office directly. Everybody's so quick to just do things via text, phone, and not have personal things. And I think that's getting away from where we want to be as a home builder.
That really goes to my next question about your team being motivated. This is so critically important, especially with staying connected when facing tight deadlines. And I'm going to put that on, like, again, we have pressures from market as well. So can you talk about how you keep your teams motivated to really do their best, keep the customization and the customer in mind forefront? And I'll start with you, Matt.
I think it's crucial. It's our job, as we've learned with you helping us get to the point to where leadership is a thing. I mean, I used to think things just happen, but people are really looking for direction, and they need that fuel to be able to have them succeed as well. So whether it's the next step in their line or where we want to go as a company that we've learned. I think where we're struggling right now in the construction industry is a lot of older gentlemen or females that are industry are retiring. The baby boomer area is kind of going to its wayside. We're hitting the head very, very hard in regards to like the younger generation tackling the trades. Can they do it? Where do they start? It takes experience to get to the point to where we're at. So if these kids don't get that now, we're going to be chasing our tails. So I think giving the kids direction, more to-do lists, checklists, things in our company will help us succeed and the younger generation succeed.
Mm-hmm. Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very, very similar. The other thing is, again, bringing in some of the experiences from my past in corporate life. When I got involved in the company, even though we're a very small company and a lot of small construction companies maybe don't operate like a corporate environment, but there's certainly some things that we can do to leverage some of that. Like, for example, implementing merit reviews with the employees on an annual basis, bonus programs, both based on merit and based on job profitability, so that employees that we have see that their efforts can get paid back to them with their successes. And, the harder they work, the more incentive there is for them and their pay compensation.
It's almost like skin in the game. They got all the integrity. They're thinking for themselves outside of just being told what to do. I think that sense of ownership we've found has made our employees better over the last 6 months. I feel like just by having them have sense of ownership in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about a tight market, you're also talking about having these tight time frames that you're having to do. So there's a lot of pressure there. And especially if something doesn't go right, if something's not coming in, because you rely so much on a market where maybe something's not exactly in the door yet. And so you're working off the customer deadlines. How do you talk to the customer when you have to deliver, I hate to say it, but bad news if there's going to be a delay? I'll start with you, Tim.
Well, I guess, first of all, just being open and communicating with the customer is important. We are a custom home builder, so the schedule of our completions a lot of times are dependent on the amount of customizing that the customer is doing midstream. So some of the delays, are because of the choices customers are making, and making sure they understand the impacts of those choices. We definitely run the business in the idea of not wanting to say no to customers, giving them every opportunity to make the changes they want to get the house they want, but also understanding that some of those choices will come with a schedule impact or additionally a price impact. But keep an open communication with them and not over-promising so that we can't end up under-delivering.
What about those deadlines? What are you seeing, Matt?
They're hard. I mean, it's hard. Life happens. Just for instance, we accept challenges throughout the year, such as holidays. People don't think about that stuff. They're like, when can I get in? But obviously, you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas, you got first of the year. You got all these places and times where people take off. So having timelines and constraints during those things, people don't think about. But those are things that we have to have as variables as well. Obviously, weather, materials. You said vendors. People have a bad day. They call off work. There's things that you have to adapt on. The way of the world now is instant gratification, instant issues, instant feedback. Unfortunately, construction, there's a lot to the moving parts. And when you stop that train, like Tim said, is if we can get the information and keep things moving, we could be a production-based custom home. I do feel that. But we're only good as our operations team gets the information.
That's, let me think about this with housing market, because there's been some challenges. At one point, we had too many houses. and not enough buyers. And then you had a lot of buyers and not enough homes. So there have been real changes in the recent years and challenges. How do you lead your company through the uncertainty? Because again, you rely on the customers to want to build homes. And, there's other things that have nothing to do with your ability to supply a home, but it has everything to do with other market forces. How do you lead a company through uncertainty?
Well, that can be a challenge. In our 10 years of existence, we've had quite a few ups and downs as the market has changed during that time, dealing with COVID. Imagine to say 4 or 5 years ago, we were dealing with COVID, but it has been that long now. And whether it's supply chain issues that came up, interest rates have swung significantly. People think they're high now. They're really not that high. They're just much higher than they were 3 or 4 years ago. So a lot of your younger buyers, their entire adult life, they've only experienced mortgage rates in the 3s and the 4s. And so when you're in the 6s, that seems expensive. And it is more expensive than it was. But dealing with those changes is tough. There is a housing shortage in the area. We're not building nearly as many houses in this market as was being built previously. However, you've got land issues. You got to find land. You've got some permitting challenges on certain parts. It takes a long time to get new land developed for new housing. And just, again, dealing with the affordability for first home buyers or people that are existing homeowners sitting on a low interest mortgage that don't want to give that up in order to get to their next house. So that's a lot of challenges to deal with. And, one way we adjust that or balance that is, as a custom home builder, we're not building a lot of spec houses. However, we will build 2 or 3 or even sometimes 4 more spec houses a year to fill in the gaps. That helps keep a pipeline for our employees and our subcontractors.
That leads me actually to my question about strategic planning, because it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're thinking through what that's going to look like and how you can plan to keep sustainability, which of course means success. So you're really strategic planning through that. Matt, what are your thoughts on that with strategic planning and how that plays a part?
Our main primary focus is new construction homes. Obviously, during those months that we talked about, the holidays where things do get slower, people aren't ready to pull the trigger because of school or whatever it might be. We've made some shifts in our company to where we do select remodels, higher end remodels, case-by-case projects that might make sense and fit our needs. So we do have to adapt and stay busy on those things. When Tim mentioned COVID and stuff, we're being proactive. Can we take lumber early? Can we buy this? Can we lock down rates? So there's all sorts of ideas and things that Tim and I kind of brainstorm throughout, the days or weeks when these things kind of come up. But we definitely try to be proactive. You got to be forward thinking in this industry. I used to think two weeks ahead, but now I'm thinking 2 months, because there are so many variable chains. When do you need to order? Supply chain issues. Is that good contractor busy? Those are things that have to be outside thought of. You can't just get this guy off the street and when you want him, he could be a month out, because he's good. So those are constraints that we're having that we're seeing now.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, the best people are the busiest people, and then by the sheer nature of they want people to work on their projects, and so you're waiting for them to get off of one job. So that it's really multifaceted, and the fact that you're trying to balance that leadership, within the company, but also to help that family that's trying to get their dream home built at the same time and balance the expectations. So it sounds like you're trying to do both a balance with vision as well as leadership. So the next questions I think are fun because, I hope you don't dream about building a home, but I was wondering if, what are you doing in your pastimes? And so what are you reading and what are you watching? And I'll start with you, Tim.
Well, lately it seems like I haven't had a lot of time for a lot of reading. Watching, I spend a lot of my time watching the market. I do a lot of investments outside of the business, so I'm usually glued to CNBC, watching the market, seeing where things are going. As far as other listening, I'm kind of a talk radio guy.
Matt?
Oh man, I'm big on podcasts right now. So you got it going on. I think the realness comes out. I think people say what they feel what they say. So I think right now my main thing that's helped me get through a lot of life challenges and work challenges was 75 Hard. It's a Andy Frisella program. It's a mental toughness program. It's basically winning a war with yourself. Obviously, I said I had a sports background. Doing sports has got me to the point, but mental was not all there. So sports is easy. You're not really thinking. But when you get the challenges of people's personalities, life, money, finances, just everything compiles, I think that's been a great one. It's a real podcast. He speaks the truth, in my opinion. He's hard-nosed, which I need. So if you haven't listened to it, I feel like it's a very, very a great podcast. It gives you some motivation and some expectations, what I'm hearing. So
that's one thing too about with integrity is saying what you mean and doing the work. And I think you talked about that too, how really critically important. And your clients are counting on you to do that. Tell me the real deal. Is my house going to get built on time? If it's not, tell me the real deal. If I'm not going to get in by the holidays, I really want to know, don't stall. And I do have friends who've built, and I know there's been challenges with that. And they're like, I'm not sure if they're really telling me the truth. But you've put integrity as that first forefront of what you're doing, trying to make sure that the customer knows that what you're telling them and you're not trying to sugarcoat it.
I'll touch on that. That's a hard one because I feel like as much as you can give customers information and all that, there's some things that might not be relevant or needed to know to keep projects moving. It's not that you're holding things hostage. It's basically, is it out of sight, out of mind? It's not necessarily that. But I feel like when you get more information, it makes it more challenging to do your job because now you're educating them. We're custom. They might want to change some things. So there is a fine line on that communication and that aspect, in my opinion. But I definitely think that hearing positive podcasts or reading positive books and seeing things that are in your industry has helped my mind kind of get a little bit past certain thought processes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, you could say it's like you're making your own architecture yourself and building it.
I said it was like food for your brain. You're reading these things. Not, how can I apply that? But you're not just reading white noise or anything. You're reading things that might apply to business, and I think that's been a great asset for us.
Excellent, Tim.
Yeah, I was just going to say one of the challenges is when somebody, especially if they've never built before, and we get started, and the first couple months, there's tons of activity happening. The foundation goes in, the framing goes up, the walls, they see a lot of things happening. They're all very excited. But then there's a period where once we get things dried in, things slow way down, at least from the perception of the customer. There's a lot of things happening you can't see. And so we try to prepare customers for that period because otherwise they're calling us constantly, hey, there's nobody at my house today. Nothing's happening. And they're thinking we're falling behind schedule and we're not going to, complete in time. When the reality is that's built into our time model. And so we just got to make sure that we're constantly communicating, hey, this is normal. This is a period where, there are a lot of things happening. They're just not always visible to you. Or there are days when there's nobody there, but that's okay because we're waiting for another trade to finish up a job and then they're coming in. But ultimately, the commitment is when are you actually going to turn the house over? And sometimes it doesn't always look like we're on track, but usually we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, communicating is really critically important and setting the expectations. So, well, I can't thank you both enough for coming on the show and just talking about the experience and how you're building it as a successful model, literally as a model for a home, but also in business and how you're moving that along. And I commend you for having that honest conversation and with integrity with your customers and making sure you want them to be as happy as possible with their new home and treating it like your very own. So thank you so much for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yes.
And thank you to our listeners for catching the show, liking it. We appreciate you. Don't forget to share it. And if you have feedback, you can send it to info@mazeassociatesltd.com. We'd also like to thank Jennifer Pansition, who is an Edward Jones financial advisor. She's fantastic. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. And of course, until next time.
The PinLeader Podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Maze & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.mazeassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the PinLeader Podcast and share with others.